Hey guys, today I want to talk about phone use and how that's affecting children's development, particularly from the perspective of adults who are taking care of their own children. So we're seeing levels of neglect now that were actually impossible in the past. There was no way that people could show such degrees of neglect to children. Only today, I observed someone walking hand in hand with their child, more or less dragging the child, whilst looking at their phone with in-ear headphones. Seriously, can we not see how that's going to have disastrous impacts on the development of these children? Do people not care? I think fundamentally the issue is people forget what it's like to be a child as they age. They become jaded and they completely forget what it's like to be a child. They forget the imaginative elements of existence, forego that, and become ones who lack empathy to a child. Perhaps even they may be able to empathize with an adult, but fundamentally, the experience that a child is having is completely different to any experience that will be facilitated in adulthood. Your brain, your neural pathways are much more malleable. There's so much more neural elasticity, I think is the term. Correct me if I'm wrong. Anyway, these people who are coming into the world now are being raised by parents who have this crippling addiction of attention. Phones suck your attention. That's what they do. Doesn't matter what you're really using it for. There's addictions, and I think collectively a lot of society is heavily addicted to their phone. You see this, people constantly on the feed. They are being fed ideas without taking a moment to contemplate for themselves. Now, in respect to children, this is seriously alarming. The negligence that occurs through lack of supervision of the child because the person's too occupied with the phone to interact with their child in a manner that people would not be able to do in the past. Yes, perhaps with televisions you could say people would focus on that or a computer, but now with the phone, at any seeming moment, people have the ability to zone out from their child and they don't have to worry about the child, which is pretty crazy. Also, like, I've done work at places and children are there. The parents will go on their phone for the entirety of the child's class. They don't really observe. And I think with how the internet's come in and phones, smartphones have come into play at the point that they did, people don't realize how addicted they actually are to them. And they're not thinking about the impacts their behavior with phones is having on their children. You could never really, you could have a Walkman or something, but you could never really block your child out to the same degree as having the in-ear noise cancelling headphones, which are now available. And It's such a sorrowing sight when you see a child curled up to their parent, observing whatever the parent's doing on the phone, and the parent is scrolling. That's a moment to interact with the child. You multiply this, say, from the ages of 2 till 10. That's 8 years, right? 8 years where there's been times where you could wrap your arm around the child. You could tell the child you love them. You could tell the child a story. But no, that's been replaced by this scrolling. Think about it. We people my age and older don't really have the ability to relate to this in our lived experience, and that's the thing. We need to empathize, but we need to remember what it's like to be a child and what children need, what love is, and how to appropriately give that. We need not be consumed by the screens, and many people seem to say the kids need the screens, and I understand they're so addictive, but that comes from within the home. If you set the parameters, you can restrict things. You know, it's not so cut and dry. Of course, I remember being a child, I was absorbed by screens in a way that is kind of unfathomable. Now I'm a bit older, but I've had time to grow and develop. See, even within adults, they've been given time to grow and develop before given the devices, whereas kids now, it's from the womb. They're being reprogrammed by interacting with the internet. You don't interact in real life and interact in the internet the same way. You see people in a different light on the internet. This exposure changes children, and it's serious. Not talking to your child is serious. This is where we're going to lose oral traditions, because people don't communicate and pass down knowledge from one to another. We're going to lose a lot, and it's just sad for the kids. It's honestly just sad observing children that are trying so desperately to be loved by their parents, to feel it, to see a smile. But alas, they interact screen like they interact on a screen. You know, there's a lot to be said about remember the children. I feel really sorry for whatever the world they're going to come out of. Kids that are 5 years old now, what world they're going to be in with the way things are going. Who knows? But there's hope if people can begin to realize how much time they spend on the phone and how much that detracts from their child's development. You could not tune out from the child in such a way. And I think children need to be seen, children need to be heard, and children need attention. We should not export such to the phone. Us on a phone, our child also on their own device. This will disintegrate and cause rippling effects that I think are seriously major. Anyway, that's just something I've observed. See ya.